Back in 2020, before the release of the Mafia 1 remake, we covered the full story of the Mafia series. But this updated video takes it further, exploring the remake's lore changes, key updates in Mafia 2 DLCs, and how it all connects to Mafia: The Old Country, all rendered in glorious 4K at 60 FPS. The 1930s. The Dirty 30s, as they were referred to during the devastating Dust Bowl, but agriculture wasn't the only industry in a tailspin. The Great Depression followed Wall Street's biggest ever crash in 1929. Famine, stark wealth differences, unemployment. It was a rough time for the world and an even rougher time to be Tommy Angelo. Born in San Celeste, Sicily, which you probably recognize, but we'll get to that eventually, Tommy is the youngest of 3 siblings. After the foreclosure of his family's plantation, his family would move stateside, ending up in Lost Heaven. Marco would work in the harbor until his death, and after Tommy came of age, he embarked on a similarly honest lifestyle, building highways across the country, constantly on the move, and saving up money for something. He would return to Lost Heaven in 1926 and seek a different line of work: taxi driving. It was hard and it didn't pay much, but at least he had an honest job during these troubled times, just like his father. This is the story of Mafia Definitive Edition, launched in 2020, 18 years after the original. Developed by Hangar 13, it's a remake which follows the same story but makes several significant changes to events. With Mafia: The Old Country out on August 8th for Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC, it's good to revisit the franchise and see how far we've come and potentially connect it to the sequel. Spoilers follow, even if you've played the original game, so be warned. Now back to Tommy, and before long, his world is quickly upended. In 1930, while on a break, he sees a car crash and 2 men emerge, guns out, forcing him to drive. These two, Paulie and Sam, work for Don Ennio Salieri, and are currently fleeing after a deal gone wrong with Morello. Following a frenetic chase, Tommy delivers them to Salieri's restaurant. They pay him for his damaged cab, the amount later discovered to be enough to purchase a whole other cab, and, well, they offer him some work. However, Tommy wants to stay on the straight and narrow and goes his own way, while promising not to tell anyone what happened. The next day, while ferrying passengers about as usual, he's attacked by Dino and Lou of the Morello family. They take to trashing his cab and attacking him, but before things can get worse, Tommy escapes, making his way towards Salieri's restaurant to hopefully take shelter. After winding through alleys, he arrives, with Sam and Paulie standing outside. Lou and Dino are adamant about having a word with Tommy, but Sam tells them that he's the Don's favorite driver and hence, no can-do pal. When they refuse to relent, saying they won't leave empty-handed, Paulie pulls out a shotgun and tells them that they may not leave then at all. This proves to be a fairly convincing argument, and the two leave without causing any more trouble. Tommy goes to see Don Ennio Salieri and his consigliere, Frank Coletti, though he offers a small loan to help Tommy. The latter isn't keen about a handout. Instead, he wants to take revenge on Morello's men for causing him trouble. The Don gives him his blessing, and together with Paulie, Tommy heads to Morello's lounge, smashes and sets fire to their cars, and even steals Dino's ride. He then joins the Salieris, working alongside Paulie and Sam. 2 years pass, and though initially bent on leading an honest life, Tommy is now a full-fledged mobster of the family, carrying out hits and other jobs. He even takes the place of a local driver, Mikey Dunn, in the Lost Heaven Grand Prix after Morello's men beat him up. Tommy subsequently wins and meets Sarah, the daughter of Luigi Marino, who works at Salieri's restaurant. Upon returning one evening, he's asked by Luigi to accompany Sarah back home to protect her from some local thugs who've been harassing her. Naturally, Tommy encounters the gang and protects Sarah, though he suffers some injuries. He goes with Paulie the next day to see the gang, including their leader, Billy. The latter escapes, but he's chased down and killed. The news reaches his father, corrupt city councilor Roberto Gelati, who swears revenge. Things start to become more complicated when he's told to kill a woman named Sarah after her establishment switches alliances over to Morello. Instead, Sam asks him to spare her, and as a result, Tommy gives her money to leave the city, effectively disobeying the Don. Conflicts between Morello and Salieri heated up in 1933 when the former enlisted the aid of Gelati and the police to apply pressure to the latter. It also doesn't help that Frank has suddenly gone AWOL and taken Salieri's books with him. The Don orders Tommy to kill Frank over the betrayal, which causes even more internal conflict since they became friends. However, upon meeting him at the airstrip where he was to leave with his family, Frank reveals that Morello threatened his family in exchange for the books. If he followed his orders, then they could leave the city. Once again, Tommy defies the Don and opts to let Frank go. The situation remains tense between the families, though, as Salieri's businesses are slowly crippled thanks to Morello's police connections. Thankfully, Polly puts forth a plan that could help their financial standing and enacts it together with Tommy. It's 1935, and the prohibition is officially over. The Salieri family is back on its feet, while Tommy is now capo regime and married to Sarah with a daughter. Unfortunately, things heat up once more as Morello seeks to have Salieri assassinated. It's through Tommy's assistance that Salieri survives, but the message is clear. War is here. Tommy kills Gelati and Sergio, Morello's brother. Though Morello himself tries to escape via plane, Tommy works with Polly and Sam to shoot it down. They follow its crash into the city, and Tommy subsequently catches up with Morello, ultimately killing him. Just as soon as it started, the war was over, and by 1938, the Salieri family has full reign over the city. Morello's former soldiers joined the Don, and he even ordered the assassination of Hank Turnbull, a candidate in the gubernatorial election. He threatened to stop the rise of gangsterism, fueled primarily by the death of his friend Gelati. But before he could officially start campaigning, Capo Regime Vincenzo Ricci and Tommy worked together to kill him, with the latter pulling the trigger. Even with the Salieri family effectively ruling without any opposition, the Don has changed. He pushed Tommy, Polly, and Sam to steal a shipment of imported cigars, which are supposed to be diamonds, from the federal impound. The three venture forth and retrieve the shipment, but soon realize that it's actually something else entirely. The Don of old would never have dealt in such vices, and the fact that he never revealed the true nature of the shipment has Polly and Tommy concerned, while Sam is seemingly indifferent. Shortly after, Tommy agrees with Polly's plan to rob the Grand Imperial Bank, which they accomplish. However, when he goes to meet Polly, Tommy discovers his death. As it turns out, Salieri learned of the heist and the duo's plan to cut him out. He hired Sam to kill them both, but that's not all. It's revealed that Salieri discovered Frank was still alive and had him killed in Europe, with Sam seemingly indicating that his family also was not spared. Sam would even kill Michelle at some unknown point as well, and it seems to be lights out for Tommy. Fortunately, he survives, corners Sam, and kills him. With his ties severed with the Salieri family, Tommy seemingly goes on the run, seemingly delaying the inevitable, but plays a somewhat unexpected card. He would meet up with Detective John Norman, to whom he was recounting his entire tale to from the beginning of the game. Tommy wants protection for his family, new identities, and a place, quote, far away from the city. But there's a catch. He needs to testify against Salieri. Norman makes it clear that that's a long road, and while Tommy makes to leave, he confesses that he also has a family and knows what the former is going through. At the same time, this case will be the city's biggest, potentially dragging on for years, and he doesn't know if he can protect Tommy for that long, especially since there are, quote, not many badges he can trust. By the end, the two strike a deal. As long as Tommy helps put Salieri behind bars, Norman will help him however he can. While Tommy gets a reduced sentence of 8 years in prison, the Salieri family is tried, convicted, and sentenced. After leaving prison, he would eventually enter witness protection with his family and relocate to Empire Bay, a city that surely won't come into play sometime later into the series. We then jump forward to 1951. At his daughter's wedding, Tommy discusses his time in prison and efforts to become a better husband and a father, and how, despite family being one of his biggest weaknesses, it can also be their greatest strength. He is then shown on the lawn of his new home. Suddenly, a car pulls up and two men step out, inquiring if he's Mr. Angelo. He confirms that he is. He's told that Mr. Salieri sends his regards and takes a shotgun blast to the chest. As the duo retreat and Tommy lies dying, with his family rushing out to see him, he assures them that they're safe, and that while money, jobs, even the best pals will come and go, family is forever. And thus ends the tale of Tommy Angelo. Overall, it's interesting to make out all the differences between Mafia Definitive Edition and the original. Michelle, who was originally Sarah's friend and thus left alive, has no connection to her. The mission to kill Morello, which involved venturing through the city to find the wreckage of his plane, is resolved at the airport itself. Hank Turnbull was originally named Mr. Sewer and had a far different backstory, though he still campaigned on eliminating organized crime and thus posed a threat to Salieri. However, it's the epilogue which has seen some of the most important changes. Tommy focuses more on the value of family, completely omitting the part about Salieri receiving life imprisonment and other gang members being executed. When Salieri's men came to kill him, he was shocked in the original and died on his lawn alone. But in the remake, he immediately makes peace with the fact and dies with his family around him. Tommy's final words are also completely different. He focuses more on family, specifically his loved ones in the remake. However, in the original, it's about how the world is run by people and not the laws written on paper, the importance of balance in all things in life, and so on. It's all still in keeping with the finale, though the original monologue seemingly tracks more with the rest of the game and how things ultimately end up. Of course, Mafia Definitive Edition is also noteworthy for other reasons. After all, Tommy was born in San Celeste in 1900, the same period and setting as Mafia: The Old Country. The foreclosure of his father's plantation ultimately prompted his family to leave in 1904, and it's established that he didn't spend much time in Sicily to really learn the language. However, he had two other siblings, Marco Angelo Jr. and Isabella, born in 1890 and 1897 respectively. Perhaps they played some role in the Old Country before the family's departure. It's also possible that Tommy's father has a key role, and his fate is decided by the events that occur in this prequel. However, there are other connections to make, such as the two men who ultimately ended up killing Tommy in Salieri's name. Fortunately, we won't have to wait too long to learn about them as the story continues in Mafia 2. But first, we have to go back. Not to the start of the Dirty 30s, but a little further where the ramifications of the Great Depression could still be felt. 1943, World War II. This time, players control Vito Scaletta, a Sicilian immigrant. His story is almost parallel to Tommy Angelo's. After his father moved his family to the United States in the 1930s, life didn't pan out for the Scalettas the way that they had hoped. Affected by the Great Depression like everyone else, they were afflicted by severe poverty, and Vito's father worked himself into an early grave. This was not the life for Vito, naturally, so alongside bestie Joe Barbaro, they embark on a steady stream of petty crimes throughout Empire Bay. When they inevitably mess up, Joe gets away, but Vito is arrested. Jail also isn't part of his life goals, so he takes the next step, enlisting in the US Army and venturing to fight in World War II. And this is where our story picks up. Sicily, San Celeste, the start of many of the Mafia universe's families, friends, and foes alike. But this time it's under occupation, and Vito's regiment, the 504th Parachute Infantry, must clear things out. Things go wrong, and Vito is subsequently injured. And just when it seems like he'll be executed, Don Callo of the Sicilian Mafia rolls in on a tank, asking the Royal Italian Army to step down. Quote, "A man of honor," one says. Quote, "If you don't do anything stupid, you can go home to your families today," says another. Suffice it to say that this would have a profound impact on Vito. Thanks to Joe, who cooks up some fake discharge papers, Vito returns to Empire Bay, where his sister, Francesca, reveals that his family is suffering from heavy debts after his father's passing. He sets out for work, working for his father's old boss, Derek Pappalardo, at the docks and alongside Joe in some shady jobs. Eventually, Vito's connections with Pappalardo and with Joe help him climb the ladder a little higher, and he's able to connect with members of the Clemente crime family, Capo Regime Luca Guarino, and made man Henry Tomasino. Through his work with the family and with others, Vito is able to secure enough money to pay off his family's debt. The job that ultimately helps him net a decent quantity of cash involves a hit on Sidney Penn, a crooked businessman who's stopped paying money to Don Alberto Clemente, head of the Clemente family. Vito is able to pay off his family's outstanding debt, but unfortunately, a crime involving the sale of stolen ration stamps results in him being sent to jail for several years. He comes into conflict with Irish mob head Brian O'Neill, who seeks revenge against Vito because of a botched robbery that resulted in his jailing. However, he also becomes friends with Vince Consigliere Leo Galante in prison for fixing boxing matches, and who trains Vito in the sport, which helps in beating and eventually killing O'Neill. Following that, Vito and Galante develop a close bond, with the latter teaching the former much about the Mafia and its inner workings. Galante is also able to pull some strings and cut Vito's sentence short, and Vito is finally set free from prison in 1951. He then reunites with Joe, who is now part of the Falcone family. Together with underboss Eddie Scarpa, they complete various jobs, even killing Luca of the Clemente family. As a made man, life is looking up for Vito, as his next task involves killing Don Clemente by setting a bomb in the hotel conference room where the latter's family is meeting. Despite the Don surviving the blast, Vito and Joe successfully slay him and unbalance the Clemente family. This prompts one of their former made men, Henry Tomasino, to join Falcone, but first, he has to kill Vince family consigliere Leo Galante, the same man who helped Vito in prison. As a result, the latter warns Leo, who escapes the hit and ventures to Lost Heaven. While Henry is still able to join Falcone, Vito must deal with the aftermath of O'Neill's death when the Irish mob's new boss, Mickey Desmond, comes around. Led by Desmond, the Irish mob attacks Vito in his villa and burns down his home. Vito is able to escape with his life and, together with Joe, manages to hunt down his attackers. But this still leaves him broke and penniless, and desperate to make a quick buck to get back to his newfound lavish lifestyle. Together with Henry and Joe, Vito takes a secret deal with the Chinese Triad, which involves a loan from Bruno Levine, the same loan shark for his father. While making substantial bank, Falcone eventually finds out and demands a $60,000 cut. If that wasn't enough, the Triad kills Henry after it's revealed that he's an FBI agent. Vito and Joe collide with the Triads to get some money out of the whole rigmarole, but it doesn't pan out. Following this, in order to pay off their significant debts, Vito and Joe take on several contract jobs. One of these involves a contract from Lost Heaven's Salieri family on retired mobster Tommy Angelo, who betrayed them and led to the imprisonment of their boss. Vito and Joe are successful in killing Tommy, the protagonist of Mafia 1. Another job leads to Vito finding out that it was his father's employer at the docks, Derek Papalardo, who ordered his father's murder. Vito goes on a rampage and kills Derek and all of his men. Eventually, Vito earns enough to pay off his debt, but Joe is kidnapped by the Vince family, prompting a rescue. With the money stolen from the Vinces, they pay back Bruno and are seemingly home free. Unfortunately, their actions cause a gang war to erupt in Empire Bay. Galante informs Vito that all the bosses, including Falcone, are out to get the duo. Galante, however, is loyal to Vito. He remembers the friendship that the two share, and he remembers that it was because Vito went against the orders of his bosses that he was able to escape from Empire Bay to Lost Heaven when he was being targeted for assassination, and he's willing to repay that favor. Galante tells Vito that if he can kill Falcone, he'll be able to end the gang war, and if that should happen, he'll help Vito leave Empire Bay and escape to another city with his life. In an epic encounter at the planetarium, where it's revealed that Joe was tasked by Falcone to kill Vito but ultimately remains loyal, they kill Falcone. Galante holds up his end of the deal as well, but for Vito, it's a bittersweet ending. Galante informs him that their deal covered only Vito, and that Joe was not part of that equation. While Vito is escorted out of the city, he watches his friend being driven off elsewhere, not knowing what fate awaits him, which is where Mafia 2 ends. And where does Vito end up? We meet him again a few years later, working for the Marcano crime family, as Vietnam War veteran Lincoln Clay tears through the city of New Bordeaux, but we'll get to that later. Mafia 2 offers 3-story DLC. The Betrayal of Jimmy, which focuses on the titular gun for hire as he completes jobs for Don Sal Gravina and the Brody Gang's boss, Tam Brody. While the former wants to deal with the bombers in Sand Island, the latter is busy with the Empire Bay triads of Chinatown. The bombers' leader, Elroy Tussle, and Duke, his brother, are killed by Jimmy. He also takes out the triad's captains before slaying their leader, Eddie Fu. Unfortunately, he ends up in prison after being set up by Gravina and Brody. After surviving hits from the Don's capos, he escapes back to Empire Bay and plots for revenge. In Jimmy's vendetta, he goes about dismantling Gravina's operations, leading to an encounter at the Empire Bay lighthouse where the Don dies. Brody is next, and Jimmy follows a similar path, killing his lieutenants and finally Tam himself in the Empire Bay Forge. But there's one more target, Judge Hillwood, who also had a hand in the plot. Jimmy accomplishes this task and his story is seemingly closed. The third story DLC revolves around Joe Barbaro and his entry into the Falcone family while Vito is in prison. It's revealed that he sets out to stop a witness from testifying, which spirals into killing a rat. After learning that Vito received 10 years in prison, he complains to Kapoor regime Luca Guarino, who puts a hit out on him. Thanks to Henry's warning, Joe escapes Empire Bay and lays low, only returning after 5 years to join Falcone as a soldado. Working through various jobs and even saving the Don and Eddie from assassination, he eventually reunites with Vito. Next, we need to talk about Mafia 2 Mobile. Set in 1938, Marco Russato arrives in Lost Heaven and meets with his uncle and the Salieri Kapoor regime Vincenzo following Tommy's betrayal. He meets with Luigi, no relation to Sarah's father. But some police troubles cause him to flee to Empire City. March arrives and saves his contact, Henry Tomasino, from some thugs. Falcone can assist in taking revenge on Tommy, but Marco needs to scratch his back first, including destroying the Bianco Syndicate, suppressing smaller gangs, and getting revenge on Giorgio, who cheated Falcone out of some money. Though Marco earns a meeting with Falcone, he still has to do more, which includes breaking into police officer Briggs's house and nabbing his weapons stash. Though he delivers the goods to Jimmy, Henry reveals that the former is seemingly looking to jump ship to another family. Marco kills him, despite Jimmy threatening repercussions if he stays, and embarks on another job to steal from Morietti jewelry, narrowly escaping with a significant haul. And though Marco wants to become a soldado, Don Carlo Falcone informs him to do a few more jobs. He appreciates the kid's moxie though. After another job involving the killing of a thief results in Marco's arrest, he engages in a few prison fights to gain favor with the Baby Dolls gang. He also helps in drug smuggling at the behest of Marcus, a Falcone contact, who provides a fake temporary discharge paper. Seeking a permanent discharge from Carlo, Marco is tasked with bombing and battle the Morietti family before they can over China. Upon helping weapons dealer Mao Tai and learning where the Morietti congregate is, Marco obtains some explosives from Crazy Mike and bombs their location. He then ventures to a restaurant in Chinatown at Falcone's advice to kill Mr. Morietti and the remaining gang members. Marco is then informed that someone named Mauricio is under captivity and knows where Tommy Angelo is located. He needs to talk to Frank Vinci for more details, but Falcone wants him dead. Depending on the player's choice, Marco can spare Vinci, which leads him to a cemetery where Tommy should be. He isn't though, it's a setup, which leads to the Empire City PD killing him. If he follows through on Falcone's request and kills Vinci, he reports learnings about Tommy's whereabouts at a cemetery. However, upon learning that it's a trap, he leaves and returns to Falcone, expressing his exasperation. The Don accepts him though, and promises that Angelo will be found. The story ends with Tommy's death at the hands of Vito and Joe from Mafia 2, but that's not the end of either men's stories. Mafia 3 represents an almost complete break from its predecessors in several ways, with a new setting in a new time period, a new protagonist, and a new set of main characters. Set in New Bordeaux, which is based on New Orleans, in the late 1960s, you control Lincoln Clay. Born in 1945, little is known about Lincoln's childhood and his parents, only that his mother was Dominican and his father most likely Italian. When Lincoln was about 2 years old, he was abandoned by his mother and he spent the next decade or so in an orphanage. After the orphanage shuts down in 1958, Lincoln is taken in by the Black Mob's boss, Sammy Robinson, with his wife Perla and son Ellis, being like family to him. In 1964, Lincoln joined the United States military and was sent off to fight in the Vietnam War. For 2 years, he was part of the infantry and then later the Special Forces, before his actions caught the attention of the higher-ups. In 1966, Lincoln was assigned to a covert operation, and his antics, while assigned to his new designation, caught the attention of his handler, CIA operative John Donovan. Over the next few years, Lincoln and Donovan grew closer as colleagues and even friends. By 1968, Lincoln's time in the Army had finally come to an end. After being discharged from his services, he returned home to New Bordeaux, where he was welcomed back by Sammy, Ellis, one of his oldest and closest friend, the priest Father James Ballard. Though he wants to leave for California, he stays to help Sammy out with some business, which involves the Haitian mob encroaching on their territory. Lincoln is able to help Sammy out of the situation when he manages to track down and kill Baca, the man who is widely thought to be the leader of the Haitian mob. However, it's revealed that Sammy owes money to Sal Marcano, his boss who also runs New Bordeaux. Lincoln joins in a heist on the Federal Reserve's branch during Mardi Gras alongside Ellis, Danny Burke, son of the Irish mob's leader Thomas, and Sal's son Giorgio. After the heist, they escape through the sewers and blend in during the celebrations, but Giorgio returns home following an injury. Lincoln, Ellis, and Danny celebrate the successful heist. Sal Marcano joins them, claiming his share of the take, but he's here for a lot more than that. Sal and his men shoot and kill Sammy, Ellis, Danny. Lincoln takes a bullet as well, losing consciousness, while Sammy's men leave him for dead. He's saved by Father James, and when he recovers, Lincoln is bent on revenge against Marcano. He enlists the aid of his old CIA handler Donovan to track down 3 key individuals who can help him. Cassandra, revealed to be the true leader of the Haitian mob and seeks to stop Marcano's trafficking operations. Thomas Burke, Danny's father, who had his business stolen by Marcano and was crippled by his lackey, Roman Barbieri. And Vito Scaletta, returning from Mafia 2 and who resettled in New Bordeaux with the Marcano family at the behest of the commission that oversees the Mafia, and with some help from Leo Galante. He's not keen on this, and Marcano doesn't trust him since he's planning to escape the commission's influence. Since Vito is a made man, he can't kill the Don without cause. So Sal tasks his nephew, Michael Greco, with muscling in on Vito's territory and disrupting in business, hoping that that will result in Vito being unable to kick up the money that he's supposed to pay to Sal on a regular basis, and on those grounds, he'll finally be able to get a hit sanctioned on him. Lincoln, however, helps Vito with this issue, recognizing that Lincoln has saved his life and will be able to help him getting revenge on Sal. Vito, too, agrees to join Lincoln's cause and becomes an underboss in his new crime organization. During the course of the game, something else that Lincoln helps Vito with ties off a major narrative thread that was left unresolved at the end of Mafia 2, the fate of Vito's friend Joe Barbaro. They discover that following the events of the previous game, Joe was being taken to the commission to answer for his role in inciting the gang war in Empire Bay. On the way, however, Joe overpowered the men escorting him and managed to escape to Chicago. In Chicago, however, the people he turned to for help, in turn, turned on him, brutally killing him, leaving Vito to search for people responsible for several years. The people responsible, as it turns out, went on to join the ranks of the Marcano outfit at the behest of the commission due to their role in Joe's death. We only learn later, however, that Joe is actually alive and part of the Vinci family. Vito actually received false information about his demise to ensure the duo never reunited and went on a similar tear as they did in Empire Bay. With Cassandra, Thomas, and Vito working as Lincoln's underbosses, he moves quickly to dismantle Sal's operation, striking at his business, shutting down his rackets, killing his lieutenants, and stealing many of his operations. As he does so, he increases the size and influence of his own organization as well, and each new business and racket he steals, he assigns to one of his 3 underbosses. You can decide who gets what businesses, but fail to satisfy one or more of them, and they might need to be killed. Lincoln eventually learns that the Federal Reserve heist was actually to steal plates for producing counterfeit bills, thus going legit and leaving the crime world and commission while ensuring his son doesn't lead the same life. So, anyway, Lincoln kills Giorgio and many of Marcano's men. He can either kill the Don, or Marcano commits suicide following his son's death. In the aftermath, Leo Galante arrives in New Bordeaux to meet with Lincoln, and it's revealed that his chauffeur is Joe. Though Joe meets Lincoln's gaze for a brief moment, he eventually leaves with Galante. Lincoln can't rule New Bordeaux as its sole boss if he kills all of his underbosses, which then leads to his death via a car bomb planned by Father James, who feels he's become as bad as Marcano. If his underbosses remain loyal, then they rule the city together, effectively rebuilding and improving it, though he splits with Father James by committing to a life of crime. Lincoln can also choose to leave New Bordeaux to one of his underbosses and travel, sending postcards to James, who believes that he hasn't come to terms with the world. However, the ending also reveals Donovan's fate. He testifies to a Senate committee in 1971 that he thinks Marcano was one of the conspirators involved in JFK's assassination, hence this helping Lincoln out. On top of that, Donovan also reveals that Marcano's files also mentioned the head of this Senate committee as another conspirator in the assassination plot. Donovan publicly kills the senator and openly declares that he will not stop until he has tracked down and killed every single conspirator involved in JFK's assassination. How this specifically ties into Mafia the Old Country is unknown. Nevertheless, all roads lead back to San Celeste. Vito and Tommy were both born there after all. There's also the question of Lincoln's unknown father. Is it possible that he has connections to San Celeste? What about Don Callo? He became the boss of the Vinzini family in 1914, which went on to control Sicily. Since the Old Country is set during the same period, there's the potential of Enzo colliding with them, and maybe not even making it out unscathed. An old rumor alleged that the story focuses on Don Salieri and even some parts of the late 19th and early 20th century. Could Enzo eventually become the Don and thus migrate over to Lost Heaven? Regardless, the history of the Mafia franchise is utterly fascinating, and we cannot wait to see how Mafia the Old Country unfolds when it launches on August 8th for Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.